Hey traders, checking into the cryptocurrency space. So a lot of weakness since we have last checked in. Most of you want to know about the longer term outlook and what I would consider a bear market. And I'll also go over a bit of how I've been trading the last couple of days as a bit of a trade review. Before we get to the charts, we are doing our end of the year course sale. So any of our two courses for $180 combined, and you don't need a special code or anything. We just set things up so that is the way it is at checkout. And you can click the link in the pinned comments of this YouTube video to take you to that page. So checking in on the broader market first, we've got SPY just starting some daily consolidation, pretty much a double bottom at the low of yesterday. The NASDAQ is starting daily consolidation, very healthy and minimal at this point. And IWM, which we help use to gauge risk on mindset in the market, is trying to set up an inverse head and shoulders. And we have a clear triple top of resistance looking at 225.85, 226.06, and we just topped out at 225.73. So that is a triple top. And if I am a Bitcoin bull, I want to see IWM break that resistance level because, again, when all markets are confident for the bulls, that euphoria is contagious. It seeps into other markets. So the dollar just broke the daily uptrend. We lost the daily higher low pattern for the first time in months. That's a good sign for the bulls as well. All that being said, Bitcoin has seen a lot of weakness the last couple of days. You can point to the last tax loss harvesting before the end of the year. That's a possibility. You know, if I had a Bitcoin position that had gotten away from me and I was in at 54,000 and here we are now over 10% lower and I had a lot of stock gains, I'd be selling that position and offsetting some of my stock capital gains and I'd be paying less taxes in 2021. So that narrative is logical enough that I can say, okay, that's possibly some of what is going on here. But in the end, price action is all that matters. So one thing that I want to point out, or first let's go big picture, because a lot of you are asking me, what would change my outlook to bearish? It's the monthly chart. And the monthly chart is my long-term guide. So there's two things that could happen that would make me say, uh-oh, for the bulls. The first would be a loss of the monthly higher lows. If we drop down and break 28.8, that is a huge red flag for losing the monthly higher low pattern. If I'm going to call it a bear market, I need a monthly downtrend. And for that, we need a lower high and lower low. Could that happen from where we stand right now? That's possible. Let's say this monthly candle closes right here and right now, 2 days from now. And let's say we have a monthly inside bar. It's a good candle. We have a monthly inside bar in January. Monthly inside bar breaks bullish in February. And then we roll over and break support. That's a monthly lower high and lower low. To me, I would call that a bear market because at that point in time, we'd be in a monthly, weekly, daily downtrend. So I'm not going to try and predict when that's going to happen or if that's going to happen. All I know is in the current market, if we set a monthly higher low compared to 28.8 thousand, the uptrend continues. EMA 12 is a nice visual guide, and that is what I am watching. Weekly time frame. Is this a possible head and shoulders? Is this a possible weekly bear flag? Absolutely, it's a possibility. We've been watching this possibility for 3 or 4 weeks at this point. Even before this weekly bounce got started, we knew we had to be cautious of the retracement size. At this point in time, this bounce retracement is under 382, which means it is a possible bear flag. If we roll over and break 42,000, the bear flag confirms, and we then look at 39.6. That's a possibility. It's on the table. One more thing we have to be watching for, and won't take credit from this. We had someone in the TheChartGuys chat room a week ago post this similarity. Where am I looking? Back here, May and June. So we had the flush down. We then traded in this little downward channel, and we broke it bull. And we pretty much double topped. We had a resistance level there at 40.9, and then we broke it by $400 and then pulled back very significantly. So there's your channel. There's your bull break. But we know we have a triple top at 52,000. So very similar channel and bull break into a rejection. And then we dropped all the way to a lower low. If it were going to be the same thing, we're going to keep dropping down to 42,000. I'm not going to try and predict if it's going to be the same thing. I just look back at that and say, yes, that is visually very similar, psychologically very similar as to what is going on now as to what was going on back then. And one thing I have not done, which I'm going to do right now, that was mid-June, second to third week of June. What was SPY doing at that point in time? I don't know. That right there was happening in the broader market as we were dropping. So I can look at that and say, if we were going to see Bitcoin do the same thing as May and June, I would need to see the S&P 500 here pull back 3-5%. So we'll see. Let's see if the broader market stays strong with little bull flags and new all-time highs, which is obviously what the Bitcoin bulls want to see. So now what is the good news for the bulls? What can we look for? What has to happen here is this 2-day higher low. I'm viewing this as an equilibrium. We've got our low, high of the bounce, higher low, triple top. Anything above 45.5 is a higher low. And we'll just look to continue tightening up within this range. So baby step number 1 for this higher low to be set, we need an hourly trend change back to the bulls. And right now we've got our low, high of this bounce, which is a triple top at 48.1. Have to set this higher low, break 48.1, confirm the hourly uptrend. Then we zoom out, we scout a 4-hour lower high. I personally, I would probably go to a different time frame than the 4-hour. At that point, I'd probably go to the 12-hour to be scouting a lower high to be the result of that bounce. But again, one time frame at a time, and the hourly is where the bulls need to show up and prove it right now because we haven't confirmed a convincing hourly uptrend in a while. So bears have had control. Bulls trying to shift that to try and shape up a higher low compared to 45.5. And of course, need to break 52 if the bulls are going to breathe a sigh of relief and increase probabilities that our monthly higher low has been established. And again, looking back at the previous points in time, keeping an eye on it, but I would need to see broader market weakness over the next week if we're just going to straight drop down. Dominance chart, not doing anything. Still a base with our monthly double bottom. And what I want to see is Bitcoin set this 2-day higher low, tighten up, eventually break bull. And I want on that bull break to be a bear break of this support level, is double bottom. And that would mean altcoins are breaking out faster than Bitcoin to the upside. Ethereum. So Ethereum, let's condense it to the 2-day time frame just so we have the same viewpoint as what we just looked at on Bitcoin. And it's very similar. The equilibrium's going back a bit further. Lower high, higher low, lower high. Anything above 36.43 is a higher low. So you could say we've been tightening within this 2-day equilibrium the entire month of December at this point. And again, the reason I was selling my swing position on this daily bounce was the size of the bounce and knowing that equilibriums are the most likely scenario after that kind of volatility. So tightening 2-day equilibrium, hourly trend change back to the bulls needed, just like Bitcoin. Again, the clear hourly lower high is still prevalent. You could draw downtrend resistance lines on both Bitcoin and Ethereum to keep an eye on, but I'm just sticking to price levels. If we change the hourly trend bullish, I'd zoom out either to the 4-hour or the 12-hour to scout the lower high to be the result of that bounce. But again, bulls need follow through for this to be a higher low and a continued equilibrium, which Bitcoin and Ethereum and all these bulls are certainly hoping is going to happen. ETH BTC is very close to a bear break. 783 would confirm a 2-day downtrend. That would be a bit of a red flag. Best case for the Ethereum bulls, Bitcoin form a higher low compared to 45.5. And ETH BTC hold the support level and bounce because that means Ethereum's holding its daily support and continuing to tighten up in its own equilibrium. Bulls must show up over the next few days. So Sol pull back on the daily time frame. Again, look at the weekly perspective. We bounced on the weekly. Is this it for our weekly bounce? It's possible we confirm weekly downtrends. Have to be prepared for all scenarios. At this point, we're technically holding this double bottom here, 168. This was a nice bottom fish where we had a double bottom at 168 and we just dropped down to the 170s, very close to that level. 4-hour RSI did kiss oversold for the first time. 4-hour oversold bounce is underway. And I was watching a falling wedge that broke bear straight into this bull break. Good sign that we're now confirming this hourly trend change while Bitcoin is still struggling to do so. So I know that Sol BTC is breaking out. I haven't looked at this chart I haven't looked at it in 6 hours, but we know it's breaking out. So hourly, there's your big bull break, getting over the EMA 12 for the first time here in a while. Zoom out, 4-hour lower high is the most likely result of this bounce. And for Sol USD, zoom out, 4-hour lower high is the most likely result for this bounce. Again, we're playing the zoom out game. One time frame at a time. Change the 5-minute trend, change the 15-minute trend, change the hourly trend. Great. Now we're looking at the 4-hour. Can we bounce significantly enough to create the space to shape up a 4-hour trend change? At this point, aggressive bulls are in positions playing the oversold bounces. If you are not in a bullish position and you want one, I would be waiting for, I'd either be looking on names that are trying to set their hourly higher lows right now, but if it's already taken place, if the trend change already happened like Sol, I would be patiently waiting for this bounce to top out wherever it does. I'd be looking for a 4-hour higher low, and I would be using the recent low as my stop. Again, hoping that this is a daily higher low forming and that the bulls can see multiple days of follow through on this bounce and Bitcoin can hold within its 2-day equilibrium. Luna, USDT, still looking good as well. Again, first 4-hour oversold conditions. Little 4-hour bear flag confirmed with 0 follow through. We're grinding resistance. Bulls need to clear 87.87 to get this bounce going. The hourly trend has not changed yet. It's doing the same thing as Bitcoin. It's a little inverse head and shoulders attempt here. And if it confirms, we zoom out. I'd be looking at the 4-hour or the 12-hour, scouting that lower high, and bulls hoping that a daily higher low is being set. That being said, the size of this pullback is significant enough that we're scouting a daily lower high to be the result of this bounce, unless the Bitcoin bulls were to show up significantly. Drew this pattern maybe in the last video, but it followed through. Bear break of the rising wedge of the Luna BTC pattern, an indication of the weakness, or I should say a clue for the daily consolidation on the US dollar pairing. But we're holding on a little bit better right now, trading sideways. So good sign that the BTC pairing is showing relative weakness comparative to the US dollar pairing. But still has to break resistance, just like the US dollar pairing has to break resistance as well. Sushi standing out in a big way. Sushi has completely ignored the weakness on this pullback. I shouldn't say completely. It pulled back for 4-hour consolidation as things were dumping, but very impressive recoveries. That being said, we got a rising wedge here. Why? Because the bull breaks are lacking follow through. Clear guide of 4-hour higher lows, EMA 12 support. Sushi's great for volatility. The one downside is that the big bull moves very often are given back. So I'm not saying that we're going to give this whole move back, but got to be cautious and lock in gains when you have them on Sushi. I got something in my throat. So I'll be watching that little resistance level. You got a channel here that's it's less of a wedge. So I could draw it like that. But if I want to include the previous price action, it is more of a wedge here. So I'd be watching this. And again, just something to keep an eye on. Whenever I'm in a position, whether it's bullish or bearish, I am looking in the other direction. I'm putting in the eyes of the other direction and saying, if I were a bear, what would I want to see? Because that's going to give me the red flag for the position that I'm in. And it's going to help me see all perspectives. Sushi BTC, very strong. Same kind of rising wedge setup. Got to keep an eye on it. And again, this is the kind of scenario where possibly we may see it's not as good a trend line, but we may see the BTC pairing show us a red flag first. That is something that I would be watching very closely for. But right now, Sushi Bulls loving their follow through. The weekly bounce, look at the retracement. Bitcoin retracement is less than 382. Sushi retracement is now 60%. So what does that mean? That means we've got the space where the next time we consolidate, we've got space for a weekly higher low to try and form. And look at this big picture perspective on Sushi. 2-day time frame. Downtrend resistance coming into play. This is a good one. This is a good one. Look at all these touches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, coming up on 4. If that is a rising wedge on the 4-hour and hourly that I just drew, it's going to be a rejection from this 2-day downtrend resistance line. Something for an aggressive bear to keep an eye on, something for a hedging bull to keep an eye on. All right, so trades that I've taken recently. And one thing I want to talk about here is difference between a newer trader and an experienced trader, because there's often times where I filter myself a little bit because, again, someone in their first 2 to 4 years of trading can't expect to trade like someone in their 11th year of trading. And the example that I'm going to give here is removing a stop. And right there, that should be a red flag. What do you mean removing a stop? What are you, nuts? That's the right reaction to have. So if I am at the computer and actively trading, I will remove a stop. Why? Well, number one, I'll have some kind of cushion where I'll have some profit to be working with, or if I'm going to pull my stop, I'll have profit that I'm going to be working with, or I am, my stop is at a break-even level. So if I remove my stop, then maybe worst case, I see a day loser. So it's not the kind of thing where I'm down a week maker and I remove my stop to hope it comes back. Very different scenario. But the example that I want to give here is on Luna, because I was trading all these names and I'll go over specifically what my trades were. But in this example, I was noticing that Luna was still holding on fairly fine comparative to other names. I was aware that it was a potential 4-hour bear flag. I was playing the bounce yesterday, and got myself in a risk-free position with my stop under the low. And I'll show you how in just a moment. So then this morning on the 5-minute time frame, if I'm not at the computer, I have to leave my stop because there's nothing I can do. But if I'm at my computer and let's say I'm in a 30, 40% capital position, which means I've got 70, 60% of cash for maneuvering around, rather than stop out with 5-minute RSI, this beat up, I'll pull my stop and I will play this bounce. I'll day trade this bounce. I will add rather than stopping out. Just knowing, and again, it's the bigger picture setup as well. It's not just, oh, we're in 5-minute oversold conditions, I'm not going to stop out. It's knowing that Bitcoin is approaching key daily support and watching for bulls to defend that support level. And it's also knowing that Luna is getting first 4-hour oversold conditions. And again, so if I'm not at the computer, I will stop out no matter what's happening. But if I am at the computer, that just means, okay, now I'm going to work. I'm going to have to trade. I'm going to have to maneuver. I'm going to have to buy the crushed flush of 83.50 stops triggering. I'm going to sell partial into the initial bounce. Maybe I'm going to re-add that back and then sell in that bounce. So it just means, when I'm actively trading, I'm scaling in and out. And sometimes to establish a swing position, I'll be placing 6 trades with buying and then selling and then just maneuvering around. This is something I did not do until my 7th year of trading. And it is definitely a level up. It's the next level up to take your trading. Once you prove consistency, I'd say minimum 4 years. If you're proving consistency to yourself in different markets, both bull and bear, that's when you start to be able to have, and you're also proving discipline, but that's when you start to be able to have more maneuverability with your trading as long as you've got capital. If I'm 80% in a position, I've only got 20% capital, my hands are much more tied and I have to be much more strict with my stop level. And there is the risk. What if it's the 1 in 100 time that we just flush and everything gets way more crushed? You expose yourself to that possibility if you're pulling your stop. So obviously that is a risk as well. And sometimes that bites you, but just want to share a little bit about my mindset and how I'm trading because it's a bit different than I allude to in these videos trying to teach people 1, 2, 3, 4 years of trading the best practices. So with that, how have I been trading? So at this, let's cover the trades that I've been in initially. I was in an ADA swing and I was in a soul swing. So again, I had great entries where, that's not it, where I was entering on the weekly higher lows and I got filled on ADA 127. We had that triple bottom at 118 we were playing off of. I sold enough so that, actually no, I didn't sell any. I was in 127 and I added to an aggressive position. And I added when I gained confidence in the crypto market overall. So initial entry 127, doubled down maybe 134 or so. I think I had about a 131 average in my aggressive position. I then watched this 4-hour equilibrium play out and break bull. The one thing I did well is I sold into strength. I sold an initial half of my position on this bull move up in the 150s, not half, 25%. And then after this drop, I said, I should have taken more off. There's my second chance. Same way that I sold my swing positions from the monthly on Bitcoin and Ethereum, I had the daily bounce for my second chance. So ADA, I got my second chance and I sold another 25%, around 153. So average exit 153 for half my position. My break even on the trade that I am still in is now about 110, 113, something like that. So I'm not even worried about going red on this trade. And why didn't I exit everything? Because the trade is based on the weekly time frame and I wasn't playing for a weekly bear flag. I'm playing and trying to position myself for a bounce like SUSHI is seeing. I want a 50% retracement bounce. And it's not game over yet for the bulls, but I have positioned myself so that if it is a bear flag, I lose $0, I give back profit. And I definitely gave back a decent chunk of profit the last 2 days because I did not close out these positions. But again, the criteria and the longer term time frame is what I am trading based off of. And I'm learning patience. I'm not a swing trader, but trading Bitcoin and Ethereum swing positions based on monthly time frames twice this year has done a lot for me in terms of gaining that patience. And again, it's maneuvering around. So this one ADA trade that I just described to you, I've probably placed over 10 orders in terms of buying and selling. One time, I sold 25% of my position up here, anticipating the same thing. Second chance, 4-hour lower high. I saw the consolidation, said that's healthy. I rebought the position I sold at the exact same price that I sold it. So again, I'm constantly doing this maneuvering around to allow me to be able to hold these positions a bit longer term. And now ADA is still in a daily uptrend. We're scouting a daily high or low, anything above 120, which is why I want to continue trying to let this trade play out now that I'm risk-free. Other trade that I had on was SOL. Very similar. Again, fortunate to have nailed the bottom on that flush. Entered at 151, sold at like 154 on the initial bounce, so I'm risk-free. And that's the position that I had. I let the daily equilibrium play out. I didn't add an aggressive SOL position. And sold half of my position at 201. If you go back and look at the video that I did last 2 days ago, you can see that I am very cautious of this rising wedge on SOL, and I start talking about some red flags and potentially taking profit. And in that whole video, I was talking about hedging bullish positions because things were just a little bit euphoric in the short term. So I sold half of my position at 201. So entry or break even at 148, let's say, sell half at 201. My break even is now under $100. So again, can't lose on this trade, and I'm going to let it play out. I'm looking for a daily high or low to form here. I'll then expect a lower high to be the result of any bounce. But again, just trying to let the longer term time frame play out because I can't lose. Other than that, I added an aggressive Bitcoin position. So the aggressive Bitcoin position that I added was on this little 12-hour consolidation. Added at 49,000, sold a little bit into the bull break to have my position. I think my average was something like 48.2 or 3. And then I just left my stop at 48 and stopped out yesterday. So tiny loss there from my aggressive bull position. A-okay with that. Obviously in hindsight, on the triple top rejection of 52, should have taken a little bit off, but that's all right. Now, okay, so that's covering previous trades. Now trades that I took yesterday. I added SOL back. The position that I sold at 201, I added back in the 177s and 178s. I was looking for 4-hour oversold conditions and an oversold bounce. So I added it back, 177s, 178s, and I sold. I posted this on Twitter. I sold, and again, I don't have proof of everything that I'm saying right now, but just know that every single word that I've said, I have talked about publicly in the chat room, and there's 1,000 people to back that up. So I know it's easy enough to just say things in hindsight. I like to usually have my posts that you can see, but that would require way too much effort. So sold it in the 182s. I think I posted on Twitter that sell actually, and that had my break even under 176. Went to bed, let it play out. And again, the same kind of scenario where if I'm at the computer, knowing that a break of 176 is just risk-free, break even, I would probably pull that stop, risk a day or 2 loser, and try and maneuver that 4-hour oversold bounce, which had yet to have taken place at that point. I wasn't at the computer, had to leave my stop, stopped out break even, missing this bounce, but really it's just back to where I bought it, so I don't have much FOMO. So stop out break even there. And I talked about on a Twitter video how I used the NASDAQ to time those entries with that temporary bottom that saw that hourly oversold bounce take place. And then I did the same thing for Luna through W Luna. Had entries in the 85s, sold some in the 87s, stop under the low. And again, same deal. I did stop out, pretty much break even. If I were at the computer and saying, okay, time to go to work, I would have pulled my stop and I would have played this 4-hour oversold bounce more actively. It takes a lot more work, a lot more effort, a lot more brain power, but that is the challenge that traders love. So we're testing resistance, trying to confirm the hourly trend change here. Bitcoin still a bit weaker, so the altcoins are leading the way on the bounce, or at least attempting to, but we know Big Daddy Bitcoin's got to follow if we're going to have any confidence. So where I stand right now, I've got Sol and Luna risk-free longer-term swing positions. Nope, Sol and ADA risk-free longer-term swing positions. And at this point, not sure what else I'm looking to do in the short term. May look to add, if I get confidence in ETH BTC, which I don't have, I would look to add Ethereum, but I don't have it. So never mind, I'm not doing that. And I'm just remaining patient at this point. And again, the swing positions on Bitcoin and Ethereum that I sold weeks ago, worst case scenario, I could always just buy them back where I sold them. And I sold Bitcoin in the 51s and I sold Ethereum in the 4,300s or 4,000. Yeah, I didn't nail the top, so probably 4,300s or so. So I don't feel any pressure to do anything. I've got positions that I'm all comfortable in. And the question now from here is, can the bulls set a 2-day higher low and continue equilibriums? And if the answer is yes, I want to see things get as tight as possible. And the tighter we get, the more confident I will be buying a bull break of an equilibrium if that is indeed how it ends up shaping up. But I'm in a position right now where if a weekly bear flag confirms on Bitcoin, I do not lose $1 aside from long-term no-touch value. That's a lot of talking. That's how I trade. Feel free to ask any questions. Do good things. Have a great day. Bulls have proving to do, starting with the hourly. So, Adventure Time, Chapter 14 or something. We are now crossing the Colorado border into Utah. This is a picture of some fire ants accepting my peanut bribe. I've been feeding bugs my whole life. I used to feed spiders in my windowsill cold cut turkey or ham, and they would eat it. And I've been feeding ants. We feed them sugar. Fun to just watch. I just watch bugs. Anyways, these are bones from dinosaurs just along hiking trails. So this is a spine. This is Dinosaur National Monument in Utah, and they have street names like Brontosaurus Way. There's a big femur or something like that sticking out of a rock. Pretty crazy that you can just see these dinosaur bones. There's my first selfie of the trip with my new friend. That's some more petroglyphs just on rock on the side of the road. And pretty cool to, try and interpret what they were suggesting. Who knows? But common themes of spirals and coming off of arms. Not sure. Anyways, it's just one of these spots that's on BLM public land where there's your dirt road, there's your scenery, and there's a whole rock wall, and that's just an art studio for ancient man thousands of years ago. You can see the little drawings right there on the left, some of them. And then there's just a spot you could just camp by a lake right over there. So a nice little adventure. There is nothing developed aside from a parking spot near the lake. There's no signs. There's no people. And it's great. So I was just walking around looking at all the different art. That's where I set up my tent. And I got woken up by a moose the next morning walking through this river here. And the moose ended up just sitting on the side of the river for a good part of the day. And I spent my afternoon on this piece of land there. It's mushy sand. And I would just run as fast as I could from one side and then just slide on my bare feet and go 12 feet. It was just like a mud pit. I had a lot of fun. And there was a rafting crew that floated by while I was acting a fool. And a storm came out of absolutely nowhere, just right over the hill, and these big bursts of wind. And this tent ended up in that water. So I was not prepared in terms of, I had not staked it down yet. And again, there was no wind on the day. And it was just like all of a sudden, really dark clouds, winds going nuts. And I jumped in my car to, avoid the rain and had forgotten to stake that bad boy down. So didn't get soaked, didn't sink, but definitely made its way to the water. More shots of the river from the other side. And that is Utah. So didn't expect to see a moose in Utah, but did. So we're going to go over to Canyonlands Arches National Park and getting towards the second half, towards the end of the journey at this point. So I appreciate you watching. Have a great weekend. Check out the USMJ video. Check out the SPY market video. Do some good things. Have a party. Make a friend. Pet a dog.